Russian alphabet.
The Russian alphabet uses letters from the Cyrillic script. The modern Russian alphabet consists of 33 letters.
Alphabet.
The Russian alphabet is as follows. The consonant letters represent both as soft, palatalized, represented in the IPA with A, J, and hard consonant phonemes. If a consonant letter is followed by a vowel letter, then the soft-hard quality of the consonant depends on whether the vowel is meant to follow hard consonants A, O, E, U, Y, or soft ones I, O, E, A, U, I. See below. A handful of consonant phonemes do not have phonemically distinct soft and hard variants. See Russian phonology for details.
Frequency.
The frequency of letters in the Russian alphabet is as follows.
Non-vocalized letters.
Hard sign. When put after a consonant, acts like a silent back vowel that separates a succeeding itated vowel from the consonant, making that sound with a distinct /j/glide. Today it is used mostly to separate a prefix from the following root. Its original pronunciation, lost by 1400 at the latest, was that of a very short middle schwa-like sound, /u/bed likely pronounced all. Until the 1918 reform, no written word could end in a consonant. Those that end in a hard consonant in modern orthography had then a final, soft sign. Acts like a silent front vowel, and indicates that the preceding consonant is palatalized. This is important as palatalization is phonemic in Russian. For example, brat, rather contrasts with brat, to take. The original pronunciation of the soft sign, lost by 1400 at the latest, was that of a very short-fronted reduced vowels /i/bed likely pronounced all. There are still some remains of this ancient reading in modern Russian, in the coexisting versions of the same name, read differently, such as in Markaria and Maria, Mary.
Vowels.
The vowels E, I, O, I, A, U, ear indicate a preceding palatal consonant and with the exception of I, are itated, pronounced with a preceding /j/ when written at the beginning of a word or following another vowel, initial. I was itated until the 19th century. The IPA vowels shown are a guideline only and sometimes are realized as different sounds, particularly when unstressed. However, E may be used in words of foreign origin without palatalization, /e/ and ear is often realized as between soft consonants, such as in meech, toy ball. Y is an old common Slavonic tense intermediate vowel, thought to have been preserved better in modern Russian than in other Slavic languages. It was originally nasalized in certain positions, kami, Carmen, rock. Its written form developed as follows. Plus. I. Y. E. Was introduced in 1708 to distinguish the non-itated non-palatalizing /e/ from the itated palatalizing one. The original usage had been E for the uniatated /e/, ye, or E for the iatated, but ye had dropped out of use by the 16th century. In native Russian words, E is found only at the beginnings of words or in compound words, for example Potomu therefore equals po plus tomu. In words that come from foreign languages in which the use of iatated /e/ is uncommon or non-existing, such as English, for example, there is currently shallow grammatical basis on whether to use E or E, as rules were only established roughly after 1990. During Soviet era the written use of E was predominant for all foreign words, except for those which could create confusion by their pronunciation, poet, and poet, payot, sings, today accepted in formal writing as puyot. Although this very example is more likely to be vestigial to influence of the French language on Russian imperial elite during the 19th century. Starting 1990, any one-syllable words with E and words in which E does not occupy the first syllable are predominantly pronounced as /e/sex, sex, sex, proct, project. Cases otherwise will retain /j/ on their first syllable, sector, siecta, sect, debut, debut. Proper names are usually not concerned by the rule, Sem, Sam, Pamela, with some exceptions such as Dzhek, Jack or Shepherd, since both E and E are not palatalized in cases of Z, che or she, yet in writing E usually prevails. IO. Introduced by Karamzin in 1797 and made official in 1943 by the Soviet Ministry of Education, marks a /jo/ sound that has historically developed from /j/ under stress, a process that continues today. The letter IO is optional, in writing, not in pronunciation. It is formally correct to write E for both /j/ and /jo/. None of the several attempts in the 20th century to mandate the use of IO have stuck.
Letters in disuse by 1750.
KS and PS. Derived from Greek letters Xi and Psi, used etymologically though inconsistently in secular writing until the 18th century, and more consistently to the present day in Church Slavonic. O is the Greek letter omega, identical in pronunciation to O. Used in secular writing until the 18th century, but to the present day in Church Slavonic, mostly to distinguish inflectional forms otherwise written identically. DZ corresponded to a more archaic /dz/ pronunciation, already absent in East Slavic at the start of the historical period, but kept by tradition in certain words until the 18th century in secular writing, and in Church Slavonic and Macedonian to the present day. The uses O and E letters that originally used to stand for nasalized vowels /o/ and /e/ had become, according to linguistic reconstruction, irrelevant for East Slavic phonology already at the beginning of the historical period, but were introduced along with the rest of the Cyrillic script. The letters IO and YE had largely vanished by the 12th century. The uniated O continued to be used, etymologically, until the 16th century. Thereafter it was restricted to being a dominical letter in the Paschal tables. The 17th century usage of O and E, see next note, survives in contemporary Church Slavonic, and the sounds, but not the letters, in Polish. The letter E was adapted to represent the iotated /jar/ ear in the middle or end of a word. The modern letter ear is an adaptation of its cursive form of the 17th century, enshrined by the typographical reform of 1708. Until 1708, the iotated /jar/ was written ear at the beginning of a word. This distinction between e and ear survives in Church Slavonic. Although it is usually stated that the letters labeled fallen into disuse by the 18th century and the table above were eliminated in the typographical reform of 1708, reality is somewhat more complex. The letters were indeed originally omitted from the sample alphabet, printed in a Western-style serif font, presented in Peter's edict, along with the modern letter I, but were reinstated under pressure from the Russian Orthodox Church in a later variant of the modern typeface. Nonetheless, they fell completely out of use in secular writing by 1750.
Treatment of foreign sounds.
Because Russian borrows terms from other languages, there are various conventions in dealing with sounds not present in Russian. For example, while Russian has no, there are a number of common words, particularly proper nouns, borrowed from languages like English and German that contain such a sound in the original language. In well-established terms, such as hallucination, hallucination, this is written with g and pronounced with /g/ while newer terms use kh, pronounced with /x/, such as hobby, hobby. Similarly, words originally within their source language are either pronounced with /t, j, /, as in the name Thelma, Thelma, or, if borrowed early enough, with /f, j, / or /v, j, /, as in the names Fida, Theodore and Matthew, Matthew.
Numeric values.
The numerical values correspond to the Greek numerals, with dz being used for digamma, ch for copper, and ts for sampi. The system was abandoned for secular purposes in 1708, after a transitional period of a century or so. It continues to be used in Church Slavonic.
Diacritics.
Russian spelling uses fewer diacritics than those used for most European languages. The only diacritic, in the proper sense, is the acute accent. Russian, znak udarение mark of stress, which marks stress on a vowel, as it is done in Spanish. Although Russian word stress is often unpredictable and can fall on different syllables in different forms of the same word, this diacritic is only used in special cases, in dictionaries, children's books, or language learning resources, on minimal pairs distinguished only by stress, for instance, Zamok Castle versus Zamok Lock. Rarely, it is used to specify the stress in uncommon foreign words and in poems where unusual stress is used to fit the meter. The letter io is a special variant of the letter e, which is not always distinguished in written Russian, but the umlaut-like sign has no other uses. Stress on this letter is never marked, as it is always stressed, except in some loan words. Unlike the case of io, the letter I has completely separated from I. It is neither considered a vowel, nor even a diacriticized letter.
Keyboard layout.
The standard Russian keyboard layout for PC computers is as follows. However, there are several choices of so-called phonetic keyboards that one may use on a PC that are often used by non-Russians. For example, typing an English, Latin, letter on a keyboard will actually type a Russian letter with a similar sound. See KBD and Russian keyboard layout, Wikipedia.
Letter names.
Until approximately 1900, mnemonic names inherited from Church Slavonic were used for the letters. They are given here in the pre-1918 orthography of the post-1708 civil alphabet. The great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin wrote, "The letters constituting the Slavonic alphabet do not produce any sense. Rs, biki, vidi, glagol, dobro etc. are separate words, chosen just for their initial sound. But since the names of the first letters of the Slavonic alphabet seem to form text, attempts were made to compose sensible text from all letters of the alphabet. Here is one such attempt to decode the message. In this attempt words only in two first lines somewhat correspond to real meanings of the letters' names, while translations in other lines seem to be fabrications or fantasies. For example, pokoi, rest, or apartment doesn't mean the universe, and fert doesn't have any meaning in Russian or other Slavonic languages. There are no words of Slavonic origin beginning with F at all. The last line contains only one translatable word shev, worm, which, however, was not included in the translation. Another version of the message, incorporating the letters phased out by mid-1750s, reads,